Tēnā koutou katoa, good evening and welcome into the breakdown. Well, for the first time in history, the All Blacks have dropped 3 straight test matches at home. That's 119 years, and now there's many questions. How did we get here? Are things broken? Or maybe are the numbers not as bad as they suggest? We are going to discuss it all. We're going to answer all the big questions, and we've got the perfect team to do so because the originals are back. Jeff Wilson, Mils Malaina, and the king himself, Sir John Kirwan, has returned to our shores. Probably not what you wanted to come home to, JK, but it's great to have you back. We've missed you.
It's nice to be back in New Zealand. Nice to be home. It was great. I had a great holiday. Thanks, guys, for letting me go. But it was really, really interesting for me to watch from afar. It was like a neat time to actually watch from the outside.
A neat time?
Well, it is.
I'm holding you responsible for everything that's happened from the moment that you left to the moment you've returned, and you need to explain is what you need to do. But in all seriousness, it's great to have you back because your perspective on what you've seen from overseas, but also from us, we've been living it day to day over the last few weeks. And Mils, I don't know about you, I didn't sleep very well last night. I found it difficult in Christchurch. It was obviously a really challenging night for the All Blacks, but I'm a bit of a loss about where we're at right now. I really am.
I think the majority of New Zealanders are. I think frustration. I think there's a bit of frustration, obviously, with the result, but also how we play. And given the talent that we've got, and also how they played in South Africa, considering where they got to last night. I mean, I think that's probably what's frustrating me the most. I'm a bit like that too. It's kind of like, oh, man, this again, JK.
Well, I think, did you guys get carried away after the South African game? Because I was watching from afar.
So you're going to hold us responsible?
Yeah, I think it's your fault.
You're going to hold us responsible for getting carried away?
I think it's your fault. Yeah, I think we all got a little bit carried away with one win. Okay. So, and it was an amazing win, and it was done on passion and courage and commitment. But if you are wobbling, you can't change things that quickly. And for me, there's still a disconnect between the NZR and the players. I think what happened while I was away was amazing to watch. I come back to 3 things that Ian Foster, I believe, needs to look at. Selection, our kicking game, Mils. And when I say our kicking game, our attacking kicking game when you're playing a team like Argentina. And if you looked at that game yesterday, it was exactly the same loss that we had last year. So under pressure, what is happening with our leadership? So are we practicing under pressure decision-making? Because it looked a little bit like, whoa, yesterday. And then we made some really critical errors. So, I think we need to be a little bit more balanced after a win, which you guys weren't after South Africa.
That's what you will bring back to us tonight.
Well, history was made for Argentina last night, wasn't it? Their first ever victory against New Zealand on New Zealand soil. We're going to relive all the big moments, but if you're an All Blacks fan, maybe look away for this one.
Tēnā koutou katoa, no mai, haere mai, buenas noches, and welcome to the Orange Theory Stadium in Christchurch. Now Ioane looking for gap. Geordie Barrett is away, gets the pass off, and Caleb Clarkson. Here's George Bauer. Over the top he goes. All Blacks trying to play the game at high speed, but
the set pieces are not going well.
And Argentina. And here's a try. Oh boy, Gonzalez. Argentina win for the first time in New Zealand. Wow, what a win.
Well, the All Blacks have quickly moved from Christchurch. They've set up camp in Hamilton, and we're very lucky to be joined by the All Blacks forwards coach, Jason Ryan. Jace, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. Not a situation that you're used to, the losses that happened last night. What's it like in an All Blacks environment the 24 hours after the fact? Can you tell us what goes on?
Yeah, look, we're bitterly disappointed, really frustrated, and, to come off such a positive, gutsy effort in South Africa last week, where we really put a lot of pride in the jersey and really fronted in a lot of areas, and then to turn up to that Christchurch test against Argentina and put in that performance, one that we're not completely satisfied with, and it was really disappointing. So we'll be looking extremely hard at that in all of our areas, and look to make some positive shifts where we need to, because yeah, it was just disappointing.
Jace, from your experience as a coach, what is it that causes inconsistency from week to week? What are some of the markers you might look for?
Oh, there's a couple of things, and I guess personal preparation. The first thing I always do is review my own week. That's the big one to do, Goldie, and we've definitely done that. But I think consistency of performance comes with preparation and how well you do prepare. Argentina, they do bring a different game to South Africa, so we'll have to look at that, and we will deeply. But I think the whole preparation side of it, preparing accordingly, especially when you've come off a high and a big victory like South Africa, is important to go back to zero and start again. And perhaps we need to look at that side of it, I think.
Jace, created a couple of opportunities and then the line-out wobbled a wee bit, uncharacteristically with a couple of experienced players. What did you put that down to?
Yeah, you're right, JK. I think I think if you look at the first 40, well, we actually had some really good dominance. The scrum was going really well. We had some good scrum penalties. We scored a maul try, but we had 9 penalties against us, and that gave them a little bit of confidence. And then we didn't get enough points, which I guess created a bit of scoreboard pressure. And then, the last 4 lineouts of the game, we lost 3, and that was some big moments through skill execution individually, and also some timing in the structure. So, we've got to shift that. We really, I'm gutted by that. The boys are too, but we'll work on it, mate.
Jace, this is going to turn out to be a pretty tough, championship competition. You've had a big sort of couple of weeks. Stability was unknown until now, and the implementation of sort of, I suppose, new game plans and stuff. Is it reality for us to actually expect the fact that while you're learning a few things, that we might lose a couple of test matches in order to win the bigger things, the cups, later on down the track?
Oh, definitely. Like this is, like I sort of said last week that, test match rugby, you're not trying to build competition points. You're trying to win test matches every week. But reality is this is the rugby championship. So, and we've still got a great chance of winning that. And that's definitely still the focus. But I think we've learnt some hard lessons. We've won one, lost one, won one, lost one. So we need consistency of performances and we need to execute that under pressure, which is what we've sort of struggled with, especially in this game.
Jace, is our willingness to play our brand of rugby, is that in some ways hurting us a little bit at the international level, at test match level, our wanting to play and keep the ball in hand? Are there some adjustments that may need to be made?
Yeah, I think so. And we love to play footy, don't we? And it was a dry night, reasonably dry in Christchurch, although it was cool. And we want to play. We want to execute our skills. But reality is sometimes you need to break games down differently, and that's not only game understanding; it's actually game management and on-field building pressure in a different way. And sometimes that's just holding the ball and building phases. And when we did that, I think there was a passage there where we put 15 phases in a row and we're just carrying and we were cleaning, we were winning races and we looked really good. But then when we push passes, that's when the frustration comes in, when we don't really need to. So that's something that, we've got to make some shifts in.
Jace, you'll be incredibly proud of the scrum. It's going very, very well. I noticed you went to the bench early in the second half, very, very early. Was that pre-planned or tactical, or was some injuries? What was going on there?
It was a bit of both, JK, to be fair. We believe our props have made some real big shifts in the last 2 or 3 weeks. With Tyrell and Fletcher, all of them are actually going really, really well. And the way I look at it is, you only need 40 to 45 minutes out of your front rowers these days if they're playing consistently. You've got to use them, but we've sort of had our hand forced a little bit because Tyrell got a bit of a bang on the quad and Ethan got a bit of a tight calf, so we didn't want to risk that. So it's like, well, we can bring on 3 experienced front rowers 5 minutes into the half. Let's do it. So, look, Simasoni's, he's playing outstanding rugby. He's phenomenal. Did we hook him a little bit earlier? Well, it was probably a case of bringing a whole front row on together as opposed to to keep some systems in place and our structure for the whole three with those other boys.
Jace, thank you so much for your time. We can see, we can hear, you're absolutely gutted, and all of us on this panel, we're all feeling for you. So thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, no worries. We are gutted, but we'll keep trying. And it's the world we live in, and we're determined to front up this week.
Thanks, Jace. Awesome, mate.
Thank you. Jason Ryan, he's an honest and smart operator, isn't he? You learned things from that. Mills, what did you take out of that conversation?
Like everyone else, they're very frustrated. They want to learn a bit more. I think some of the aspects that he spoke about, tipping that ball on when perhaps it wasn't on. So a bit of impatience in some respect, but the preparation for me as well. And it probably goes back to your point, JK. We probably got a little bit too excited, and perhaps some of the players did in South Africa and didn't come back down to zero and restart again.
I want to talk a little bit about what process is, Goldie, because I hear the word a lot, but I think
different to preparation.
Well, this is what I'm trying to understand. What is preparation? Because I think if you go too much process and you don't bring the heart and emotion. So what was the difference between pre-South Africa, the first South African test, and the second one? Was it emotion? And what did we miss in the second half last night? So I think there's a balance. So what is preparation? I think it's the balance between understanding your opposition, knowing your game plan, and I think there is some preparation around what's happening when we're under pressure. Do we have a second game plan when our first game plan doesn't work out? But you've got to bring, every test match is your last. And I think what's happening lately, some people are starting to realise that, that they're going to get dropped. It's going to be their last. But when you go into a game like that, every test match should be your last. So you've got to be careful. And so I would like to start hearing what preparation is exactly.
What I'd like to say is that it's clear that the sample size for this coaching group is far too small. It's been one test match. So I'm not prepared to look at the way they're performing, the coaching staff. I look at the key and pivotal moments in games right now, and we're not winning those. We were in control of that test match. I think we're up by 6 points. We're up by 6 points. We miss a singular kickoff, which leads to them going in front. And they're a team that, if you give them belief, and in the first half, we were in control of that test match. The only opportunities they were getting to score points were from our aerial discipline.
I disagree, mate.
Aerial discipline. No, we were in control of that.
We weren't in control. We were never in control.
No, because we were in control of the scoreboard. If you're
we weren't in control of the scoreboard, though, were we? Because our discipline was poor. No. And so if you've got to be 15 points ahead of any side to be in control now. No. And I just don't think we're in control. No, if you're playing Argentina.
If we were, I think
what was the score at half time like?
We're in control because we allowed them, through our discipline, our real discipline, like you say, to score in threes, but they weren't threatening our goal line. They never looked like scoring tries against the All Blacks.
They don't care, mate.
But they may not care.
They were outstanding. They were outstandanding at the breakdown, and they put us under so much pressure.
They played no rugby, and we allowed...
Who cares? Do they care?
Yeah, I know you don't care. And the fact of the matter is, I want to get to this in a moment, about whether or not we need to change the way that we play, given the nature of international rugby right now. If it's about winning, But I look at this and go, you know what? It's once again, when the game is on the line, in the last 20 minutes, which the majority of the test matches this year have been won and lost in the last 20 minutes, we haven't delivered. And that, to me, you can tell we get frantic.
Yeah.
We lose our patience, we lose our accuracy, and we're trying to win it with one play rather than building, and accumulating the points you need to win. And that's to your point about our line-out started to misfire, so that we missed 3 or 4 critical opportunities. We presented them with soft penalties to build their lead on. Their try was pure and simply about a kick-off error and then 2 missed tackles. Yeah, and it wasn't like it was 12 phases and then they scored.
Absolutely, but the problem was we didn't win that moment back. Yeah. And I think that's where we got caught. That's where there's indecision within the side. We've just scored points. They come back, they score that, but I think we're disconnected in terms of, OK, we've got to actually play a Super Rugby style of game, this one game plan, to try and get us back, as opposed to being really patient and saying, well, hey, we've got to try and weather the storm for a little bit. And maybe that we just go to the front of the line out just to give us a little bit more momentum and some confidence to be able to get us back to winning those big moments. I think we continue to play a game that is not working, and then we don't adapt. Our leaders aren't adapting. It's kind of like we're hitting everything every single time, the same old game plan, but we don't want to go, OK, well, that's not on. OK, we're getting a little bit of front foot ball, but we're going to tip on because, you know, that's what we're trained to do, and let's play this type of style. No, kick and all be on the same page to then win that moment back again, and it has to hit the ground. We don't seem to be able to adapt on the go, and that's probably a real big concern for the coaching staff.
You talk about leadership. Do the players need to take some responsibility for what's going on for these results, JK? Are the All Blacks carrying passengers?
I think selection's a really big issue moving forward. I think some of the... What are the positives? Let's not take anything away from Argentina.
Yeah.
That's how they play. I was expecting that we would have a different type of game plan against them, but it was a repeat of last year, which was a little bit disappointing. Some real positives are, you know, we've got some young guys coming through. They're starting to play OK. I think there's a couple of things we need to look at. Richie Mo'unga often is in the backfield, and then he's catching the high ball, and then there's no one at standoff taking control. I think Havili needs to step into that space. So there's a lot of good things happening, but I think it is a leadership issue. What is going on? Are some of our leaders now, should we blood some young guys in there? Do we need to rest Kane? Do we need to rest Whitelock? I'm not saying that they won't be good enough to go to the World Cup, but we need to start putting some of these young guys under fire. We've lost so many games now, we might as well go, right, let's actually look at a new leadership group. Let's start building for the future. And if we don't do that now, when are we going to do it? Because it's going to be too late. The World Cup is next year. So they're big questions. I said selection is a big question, right? Selection is a big, big question. We spoke about it before, Goldie. You said you've been through a couple of eras yourself where there's an older crew coming. Younger guys are coming through, but we've got to give them... We need Dalton Popoliti to play some games. Nothing wrong with Sam Cane. OK, he's probably not playing in the best form of his life, but we need Dalton Popoliti to get out there, because what happens next year? What's going to happen at lock? You know, we've got Retallick coming back, so do we play Retallick and Barrett this week? You know, what are we doing to say we're building to the future? Because I keep hearing this, we're building. What's the word they use a lot? Mills? Can't remember it. Is it, you know, we're building for the future, or we're making changes? So...
Yeah, and I think it probably does. He's got now, you know, comfort that he's going to go through to the Rugby World Cup. And perhaps was a little bit to my question that he needs to make changes. He needs to see guys out there, as opposed to being, when he went to South Africa, everything was about week in, week out. He has to win, and he has to sort of stay loyal to some of these guys that would perform. And did they? They did. They did that in South Africa. But perhaps now is the time for them to say now, well, hey, look, we need some selection, you know, some selection changes.
I'd like to say this. So we were struggling at scrum time. What did we bring in? We brought in some young guys. That's not a problem now. Our scrum's outstanding. We've been dominant. Held up South Africa, no problem at all, and we had the Pumas under pressure. So our new front rowers have stepped up. Shannon Frizzell has come in and brought physicality, ball carrying, and his ability and willingness to put his body on the line in the 6 jersey every time he gets an opportunity. So that was a question mark we had in that position. So I look at the guys that we've introduced into the starting lineup. Samisoni Taukei'aho is there out of performance. Jason Ryan talks about playing remarkable rugby. So I think we need to continue along this path. The next one, is it time for Dalton Popoliti to start at 7? Or do we move Ardie Savea to 7 to play Hoskins Sotutu and find out? Now, this, I think...
Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, remember him?
Well, and here's the thing. I believe we need to be more direct. I think we need to be more physical, particularly through our backline. Our most physical player on the weekend, Caleb Clark. Outstanding. Through the middle of the park, carrying the ball strongly, getting over the advantage line. The nature of the contest, the way the international game is played right now, it's the ability to carry the ball which is winning the day. And we need to get better at it and play players who have the ability to do it.
Is our kicking game good enough?
Well, if you do that, you'll have a good chase line, put the ball in front of these guys, and then defensively, because that's one of our greatest assets, right, is our defence. We were just ill-disciplined in terms of the way we were defending on the weekend.
It's a fine balance. It's a fine balance. So, hey, it's all right when you're exiting out of your own 22, OK? Everyone knows there's some stage there you've got to kick. It's between the 10-metre channels. When as the way we play, we love to spread the ball, we love to keep momentum, but at some stage when there hasn't been momentum, when do you kick? And when do you kick into space to say, well, hey, all bets are off now. We tried 20, 1,000 phases or 15 phases, like don't tip on, kick to find grass to then win that ball back. Hopefully, if you find grass, I mean, three bounces, kick it back and let's start again. At the moment, between that 10 metre lines, we're still playing and we're still confident. We think we're confident to be able to. We can't. We've got to get to a point where everyone is on. And this comes down to the leaders.
They dared us to counter-attack.
Exactly.
They kicked us the ball and we counter-attacked, and all of a sudden we're on our own 10-metre line, to you say, and we're trying to build and keep the ball in hand. It's time to play the territory game as scrum strong. Force an error. We can scrum for penalties.
On my couch yesterday, I was watching you both. And you were talking about Richie Mo'unga and what a defining moment it was for him last night after a fine performance against South Africa. So is he the answer at 10, or do we put Barrett back in? Because you both said,
well, the variety of our kicking game against South Africa in the second test was vastly different to what we saw last night. And I'd like to know why. I would like to know why, because they actually play in some ways a similar game. They go to the air, they're very physical. You know, they're not as strong clearly at scrum time, but they put the ball in our court and we ended up presenting them with an opportunity to put pressure at the breakdown, to steal the ball, to put us on our heels. We tried to play. I think we should have turned them around, forced them to go backwards a little bit more, dare them to run at us. It may not have been attractive, but I tell you what, I certainly believe we would have been in a position to wear them down.
Did you answer the Mo'unga question, though?
He's still the man for me right now.
It's finding space, and I think he didn't. I think they kicked straight to them. Even if it's down the middle, as long as you found space, it's about being patient and starting again. To answer your question, well, you know, do we put Barrett at fullback then? Are we asking them to say, well, is that sort of the boldiness that Ian Foster needs to show in terms of selection? Do we need to say, well, you know, Beauden Barrett needs to come back in there as opposed to, you know, to provide us that and have a go? And again, are we prepared to actually lose Test match? This championship's tough. I mean, we're sitting here thinking 2 weeks ago how South Africa are the best in the world, and look what's happened to them. So are we prepared to actually lose to win later on? I mean, this is how big it is. Where's South Africa now? They've just lost 2 games in a row. Is that the benchmark? And we're talking down here as you know, we've lost. So Argentina are good. So are we being realistic in terms of where and how close? We're not dominant like we used to be. I get that. But look where everyone else is caught up. And so are we being realistic in terms of we're not going to go back to those stages in the next 2 or 3 test matches? We've got to be patient about where these guys are heading.
You talked about Dalton Papali'i coming in potentially at 7. What message does that send to Sam Cane and the rest of this leadership group if they're not playing next week?
Well, I think if you've got a leadership group that is not performing under pressure, the leadership group need to get together, and I've been one of those, and we all have on this table, where you're not performing well enough in the jersey, and normally one of you will get dropped. I think in modern game, it's actually sit down and say to Sam, look, I just want to see Dalton. You're not going anywhere, you're the captain, but if we're building something going forward, what's our alternative to Sam? Right? Do we need to see him under pressure? Do we need to see? And so for me, it's just a case of this is a really, really physical game. Both Whitelock and Sam Cane look pretty tired to me. And this is looking back. It's been a huge few weeks, and maybe we just need to go sit this one out, play against Aussie. Just be open and honest about it. And if you want to drop them, but just tell the truth, because I want to see Dalton out there. Nothing wrong with Sam Cane, like I'll keep saying, but let's just see the changes. Like Mills just said, if we are building towards something, if we've already lost, what have we lost? 6 out of the last 8? Yeah. Then let's just go with it and say, righto, boys. Hey, the competition's on. Sam, you're competing against Dalton. Yeah. That's just the way it is. That's how we've all got to do it. And the leadership group under pressure, they need to sit together and go, against Argentina on the weekend, we didn't perform. What do we need to do about that? What do we need to do to get our mojo back? What do we need to do? You know, is it too much process and not enough emotion? You know, did we not have the skills from the coaches or an alternative kicking game? So the leaders need to ask those questions of the coaches, and the coaches need to ask those questions of them.
Oh, I find this is... I think the players essentially had a huge role to play on the reappointment, when I say reappointment, the confirming of Ian Foster going forward to the Rugby World Cup. They will be aware of the fact that they stood behind their coach. That senior leadership group are now it's their job to take this team forward. because they've got what they've wanted.
Guys, that never should have happened, though, eh?
But regardless, here's what happened. The fact they came out and were vocal and supported their coach.
No, that was great. Good on them.
You can understand that.
Good on them. But what happened never should have happened. What happened to Foster never should have happened.
Yeah, but it did. But the players...
That is not how we do things in this country, right? And so there's another bigger problem, and that's what's going on with the NZR and why have we created this situation. There's a complete disconnect somewhere. So what happened to Foster should not have happened. They chose him, they stick with him, full stop.
Yeah.
Talking about this mid-season and then the players having to come out. If you're a player and the coach is picking you, of course I'm going to defend him.
Yeah.
Right? They shouldn't be put into those situations. So what happened while I've been away has been bizarre to watch.
But they've volunteered themselves to support their coach.
Good on them.
That's fine. But then you have to back it up.
I supported him too.
I mean, and I know as a player, and we've all been there, is the fact that in the end, you're the one that's out there who's taking the high ball, which is making the pass and making the decisions, trying to identify space to kick to, all of those sorts of things. That falls on you. That's not on Ian Foster. That's not on Joe Schmidt. That's not on Jason Ryan. It is a player's responsibility the moment you step on that field to go out and deliver, and that goes to your point, JK, of what the process, what the preparation is when they go into the test match. What does that actually mean for them to go out and deliver? How far away were we on the weekend from being at our best? And not just at our best, but in a position where we are dominant. I think at the moment we've got a lot of work to do.
Perhaps when you strip that all back, I mean, let's be honest, Jason mentioned as well, they played with heart and soul in South Africa, which is a tough place to win. They did that. What does preparation look like now? When you've got your coach has been confirmed, what does preparation look like? What does their game plan look like? You know, one game out after a fantastic performance. Perhaps there is a disconnect in terms of what's happened to Fozzie and the ability to be able to go, well, these are the things now we need to focus on.
I think there's been so much change in the last 4 weeks, it's like starting again. You know? Like they brought Jason in, had a great impact straight away. They brought, you know, Schmidt and Joe Schmidt in. You know, these are massive changes during a season. You know, when I looked at the disconnect in the line-out, that was like a beginning of the season sort of mistake. So, you know, I think we've just got to be a little bit patient. I think we've got to be really mature about it. I think I would like to see Hoskins get a game. I would like to see Dalton get a game. I'd like to see Roger Tuivasa-Sheck get a game. Because if we are building towards one thing, and that is the World Cup, we've got to try and win the championship because we've got to, and we still can, but we've actually got to start, either use the bench for that or we need to start starting some people to put internal pressure on.
We need to. I mean, imagine all this if we end up winning the Rugby World Cup. This will all be forgotten, but we need to start now thinking about what are we actually going to change. To go back to your point about Sam Cane, I think as a captain, he demands that he needs to be performing week in, week out. And it's hotly contested now between the players. We haven't seen this before in terms of our leader. And so he'll be the first person to actually admit, and it'd be an easy conversation with Fozzie. You know, Fozzie, and he's utmost and honest, as Sam Cane, in accepting the fact if he needs to stand down for someone to actually create competition, then it's an easy conversation because of the man he is.
Well, we're going to take a pause from the debate for a moment and have a little bit of fun. The trivia question, which I know
I thought you got rid of that.
Jeff's just been dominating while you've been away. But the trivia question for this week, how many games has Michael Cheika won as a coach in New Zealand? Now, this is not a trick question. Don't just think about the Pumas or the Wallabies. Think about the Waratahs as well. How many games has he won as a coach in New Zealand? Have a little think about that. We will come back with the answer.
It feels like a trick question.
It's not a trick question. Don't Google either. These guys can't Google, so neither can you at home. When we come back, though, we take a look at the last 8 years for the All Blacks, and we talk about the aura and how our team is seen across the world. But first, Pablo Matera. He made Christchurch his home this year with the Crusaders, and last night was an incredibly special night.
We talk about the fans. You guys obviously got to celebrate your song, don't you? Yeah. Can you whip it out? Yeah. ¿Vamos a cantar o no? ¿Vamos a cantar o no?
Sí. ¡Vamos, Argentina! Muchas gracias.
Yeah, a lot has happened in the last 2 Rugby World Cup cycles. We will get to that in a moment. But first, the trivia question for today. If you missed it before the break, how many victories has Michael Cheika coached in New Zealand? Not just as a national coach, just a coach.
I don't care.
We'll move on then, Mills.
That's your standard answer when you have no idea.
One.
I think it's 2. I think, like you said, I think he won once with the Waratahs here. Because
Well, let's take a look at the answer. Because he's won more than one. Last night was the first victory.
Oh, I got
first test victory for him on New Zealand soil. Never won with the Wallabies, but 2. Chiefs and Hurricanes, Millsy.
I backed them. I guaranteed the Chiefs. I thought that was. I did say to you the Chiefs, but the Hurricanes as well. Okay, fair enough.
We move on though, because there is a lot to discuss and to dissect about the All Blacks.
Just before we move on though, let's not take anything away from Cheika and Argentina, how good they are. Because I think sometimes, and I don't know what it is about Argentina, but everyone seems to underestimate how good they are.
Yeah.
And I think being out of Super Rugby has helped them. A lot of their players are back up north, so they get that balance between Super Rugby and Northern Rugby.
But they don't need balance. They play a certain style and they play it well, and I think it suits the Northern Hemisphere. And they've come down and they bank heavily on their defence. They're certainly well conditioned. This was a really strong performance, and you said it, JK, earlier on. The formula 2 years ago, I don't think, was dissimilar to what we saw last night. As they put it all in the All Blacks' court. Once they got in front, it was up to the All Blacks to respond and to win. In Australia, we didn't do that, and we weren't able to do it last night. But to your point, I think they learnt a lot from playing in Super Rugby, because like South Africa, they've gone back to their roots and what they're strong at, and it was clearly very, very good. And so much respect.
I mean, I think it's a great comp, Millsy. Like, how good is the competition? South Africa, that was a good game against Australia, a good game of footy. We lose. So if we end up, and I'm pretty sure we can, winning the championship, it's been a really good competition. Isn't that what we all wanted? The world closer from a rugby point of view? So that's what we wanted, and that's what we've got.
No mai, hoki mai, welcome back into the breakdown, and a big congratulations to Manukura, because they won their Hurricane Schoolgirls final and are into the top 4. So well done, Wahine, and to Christina Sue as well, the excellent coach of that side. Well, the Black Ferns were back to winning ways last night against Australia, which was fantastic to see. 22-14, a little bit closer than it was last week, JK, but Wayne Smith will be learning a lot about these players every single week that they go out there. Yeah,
it made a few changes, and I think the change, in the pieces that I've seen, I didn't see the first test, but I watched a bit of yesterday, and just the confidence that, the women are showing. They're confident in their systems. I think when would he make 8 changes or something, Mills, for this week? He is creating internal competition.
Yeah, and he needs to as well. He needs to see, I mean, he's got a limited amount of time to get these girls up to play before the rugby, with the World Cup, really. So, great first and foremost that they won, but also that there's a little bit more experience in terms of Test match footy before they start their
I don't know how many things questions he got answered, because they were nowhere near as good yesterday as they were last week. And the Wallaroos though were significantly better. And I think it was a reality check. They've got another test now, taking on Japan. That'll be one last opportunity to build on what they've done. I think in some ways that was a pretty important for them yesterday, to bring them back down to earth, knowing what they've got coming up.
The squad is named week before that, the World Cup squad, September 13th. Put it in your calendar, which means the World Cup team will be playing against Japan at Eden Park ahead of the Bledisloe.
Wow.
Big.
Japan just beat Ireland too, didn't they? Was it Ireland or Scotland in their game?
On the weekend?
The Sakura women, yeah.
You're up with the play, JK. You're up with the play. Make sure you get tickets. Remember, it is not too far away. Just over 5 weeks now until the Women's Rugby World Cup kicks off in New Zealand. That opening match, October 8th at Eden Park, New Zealand up against Australia. And speaking of Australia, the men's side, well, they dominated South Africa, but there's one man that is garnering all the headlines, JK, and that is the little halfback, Nick White.
Yeah, no, does he get yellow carded for yesterday?
Have a look.
Well, this is absurd. Nick, I know you're a really competitive man. I really like you as a player, but please don't do that. That's just not good for our game. I just don't think we need this in our game. We don't need the slap. I don't think it's a yellow card either. I saw what Fuff was doing, and I just don't think our game needs this. I don't know, am I wrong?
Mills?
I think you're absolutely right. He wasn't actually slapping, was he? What?
He was trying to slap the ball and he got him in the head. But it was the
drama.
overreaction.
It was the Hollywood afterwards.
Yeah.
You know, that is just ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. I mean, let's be honest. You just, this afterwards, just play on. The referees would have picked it up. You've got a TMO, you know, like... But I'm disappointed I got a yellow card. Absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
But are we going to see this in our game? Do we just need to accept it? Do you think that's professionalism? Because we see it in football. I've just been in Italy. I see it in football all the time. Do we have to... Is there too much writing? Are we, as rugby, Peter, we're going to have to accept that?
OK, I would say the odd time I played, I may have hammed it up a little bit if I got played off the ball.
Did you all?
It was a different era.
You all
know, a different era.
So is that
and they had no cards.
Is this the new era now? That we do this for 10 minutes so that we can win.
There was no cards when so just there was a warning or a penalty. So that was enough, right? So that's fair.
Well, we're 6 days away from the next challenge. The All Blacks taking on Argentina in Hamilton. There are still tickets available. Jump onto allblacks.com to get some tickets for that match. Changes, we've talked about them. What are you expecting next week?
Well, I think those three things, you know, for me, selection, our kicking game, and then this decision-making of our leaders. I mean, no one will not want to play this week, Mills. You know what it's like when you lose, they'll be hurting. Yeah.
For you, Mills?
I think there will be a few changes. I would like to see them be a bit more clinical and clear about their game plan. I think they're hurting. That's obvious. So they'll bring that. That's going to be automatic. They're going to bring a bit more passion, a bit more edge. But they've got to be clinical in how they approach it. And so that comes down to how they prepare throughout this whole week.
I just hope we're celebrating a win on Saturday night. I really, really hope it. What we are going to do as well, just quickly want to get this in, is we're celebrating our referees in New Zealand, and they've got their official test capping. This is a new introduction from New Zealand Rugby, and New Zealand Rugby are looking for the families of any deceased test referees. Going to be a fantastic lunch, and send an email if you believe that you are connected through the communications at newzealandragby.co.nz. There's a full list of referees there. If you're not sure, get on and check it out. We'd love to honour every single one that's been part of a test match.
That's really, really special that they're doing that. You've literally flown in the last 24 hours. How are you feeling?
Fantastic. Yeah,
great to have you back, JK.
All good. Nice to be home.
Great work, you guys, as well. We will be back same time, same place, The Breakdown, to do it all again next Sunday from 7:30. Fingers crossed. We are hoping for an All Blacks win to celebrate, as Jeff said.
Out on the right edge, Ollie Sabsford. Going to be tackled 2 metres out, Hawke's Bay. Oh, lovely hands from the clutches. Quick hands and Langi missing here.
Northland just a few metres out here. Surely it's on the score. Lasante Milo Harris gets it.
Looking to get on the outside, and he does too. Big Peter Umaga Jensen, and he crashes over and scores the opening try of the game.
They're coming through here. Land's got the ball all of a sudden, and he'll race away to score.
After Narawa, who started it with the lovely run. Narawa almost there, gets it down. Second try for the home side.